So if you have a business or you're starting a business, should you change your fiscal year of your business, which is also known as your financial year or your tax year? So typically a tax year, at least for human entities, is just January 1st till December 31st. But in business, if you want to, in many cases, you can actually change that tax year if you want to. But should you? I think it really depends. If you're setting up your business as an unincorporated business like a sole proprietorship or a partnership, then just by default, you are just sticking with the January till December tax year because the taxes of the business are not filed on a separate tax return. They're filed on your personal tax return as well as the partners that you have in the business if you have partners. So again, just by default, it's the regular tax year. Unless you want to change it, you can, in some jurisdictions, at least here in Canada, you can apply to have that fiscal year changed for yourself if you have a business that's unincorporated. And I will leave a link to find out more about that in the video description below. So in some cases, as an unincorporated business, it might make sense to change your tax year, but I feel like it would just complicate things a little bit more than what benefit it would offer you. Whereas with a corporation is a different story. A corporation is a separate legal entity from the owner or owners of the business. And for a corporation, you can actually change the tax year, the fiscal year quite easily. It doesn't necessarily default to January to December. It's based on when you file your first corporate tax return, your T2. So when you file your first T2, if you just claim it as a January to December tax year, then that's what your tax year is. But if you want to make it, April 1st until the end of March, or July 1st until the end of June, or, October 1st until the end of September, you can do that. You can easily change the fiscal year of your corporation. And so should you do that? Are there benefits to it? I would say, no surprise, it depends. There can be some benefits to it. One example of where it might make sense to change your fiscal year is if you're operating a business as a corporation that's very busy in, like March and April when most people are filing their taxes. Maybe your business is very active in trade shows in the spring. So you're going to these trade shows, March and April, and you're super busy with the setup and participation in those trade shows. So you don't want to be focusing on taxes. In a case like that, it could make sense to change your fiscal year just so that you have more free time to focus on your taxes at a later time or even earlier time in the year when you're not in busy trade show season. Another example of where this could make sense is if you're operating in an industry, for example, you're doing landscaping and snow removal. And so maybe your snow removal contract goes from, let's say, November 1st until April 15th. And then your landscaping contracts go from, April 15th until the end of October or something like that. Now, if you have a regular fiscal year, January 1st until December 31st, that's awkward because all of your seasonal contracts fall into two different tax years. So maybe in that case, you want to make your fiscal year start May 1st or April 15th, because that's where you're transitioning from the winter snow removal contracts to, the spring and summer landscaping contracts. That way your snow removal contract, if that's going from November 1st until April 15th, that's falling in one fiscal year. And then your landscaping contracts, if that's April 15th until, the end of October, again, that's falling in one fiscal year. So in a case like that, it might be valuable to do it just based on the seasonality of your business and your contracts in your business. And one other benefit and one other example where it might make sense is if you're just seeking lower fees or more accessibility for an accountant. So if you have a corporation in Canada, you're gonna have to file your T2 corporate tax return. Typically, you'll need an accountant to do that, and accountants are really busy in April. So if you change your tax year to end, the end of June, then you'll need an accountant, July, August, September, maybe October. And so they're probably easier to come by, they're more available, they might even have lower fees to do your taxes in that case. So there are some benefits, totally depends on your situation and your preference. And so before you change it or before you decide on what your tax year is, I would think about those things and determine if it makes sense to you and speak with an accountant on that to make the best decision for yourself and your business. And so hopefully this video was useful. If so, please click like and feel free to come check out my YouTube channel here and subscribe. I currently have 300 videos that cover business management and business startup topics.